My son insisted that he urgently needed my truck to check something important. But while I was washing the truck, I discovered a GPS tracking device clamped tightly underneath. I said nothing and asked nothing. I silently removed that device and attached it to my daughter-in-law's car. A few days later, that tracking device revealed locations that made me shudder with fear. Sarah, I'm truly grateful you're here with me today. Before we begin, I'd love to know where are you watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. This is a fictional story with dramatized elements created for entertainment and reflection purposes. Now let's dive into what happened. At 67, I thought my biggest worry was whether I'd have enough energy to finish restoring the 1972 Ford Mustang sitting in my garage. I was wrong. It was a Friday afternoon in late March, and I was in my workshop behind the house on Kearney Street, sanding down a cabinet I'd been building for weeks. The smell of sawdust hung in the air, and the radio was playing some old Johnny Cash tune. I'd always loved working with my hands. It kept me busy, kept my mind off the fact that Elizabeth had been gone for 6 years now. 6 years, and I still reached for her side of the bed some mornings. The sound of tires on gravel pulled me out of my thoughts. I looked up to see Nicholas's Ford Escape pulling into the driveway. My son, 34 years old, a senior engineer at some construction firm downtown, making good money. I was proud of him. Always had been. But something felt off the moment he stepped out of his car. "Hey, Dad," he called, walking toward the workshop. He was wearing jeans and a gray hoodie, his hands stuffed deep in his pockets. "You got a minute? For you always." I set down the sandpaper and wiped my hands on my jeans. "What's up?" He hesitated. Just for a second, but I noticed. A father notices. I was wondering if I could take a look at your truck," he said, nodding toward my black Silverado parked near the garage. "I've been hearing some weird noises in mine lately, and I wanted to check yours. Compare." It was a reasonable excuse. Nicholas knew his way around vehicles he'd learned from me after all. But something about the way he said it didn't sit right. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Sure," I said slowly. "Go ahead. Tools are in the garage if you need 'em." "Thanks, Dad." He walked over to the Silverado, popped the hood, and stood there for a moment, staring at the engine. Then he ducked underneath the truck. I went back to my cabinet, but I couldn't focus. Every few minutes, I'd glance over. Nicholas wasn't looking at the engine. He wasn't checking the brakes. He was crouched under the rear axle, fiddling with something I couldn't see. 2 hours. He spent 2 full hours out there, and he barely touched the engine. When he finally came back into the workshop, he was wiping his hands on a rag. "All good, Dad. Just wanted to make sure." "Find what you were looking for?" I asked, keeping my tone light. He blinked. Yeah, everything looks fine." He left 20 minutes later, and I stood in the driveway watching his taillights disappear down the street. That uneasy feeling in my gut hadn't gone away. If anything, it had gotten worse. The next morning, I decided to wash the Silverado. It was a bright Saturday, the kind of crisp Colorado day where the air smells like pine and melted snow. I filled a bucket with soapy water, grabbed a sponge, and got to work. I was scrubbing the rear wheel well when I saw it. A small black device about the size of a deck of cards, clamped to the underside of the frame. Wires ran from it to a magnetic mount. I crouched down my knees, protesting, and pulled it free. TrackSafe Pro. A GPS tracker. My hands went cold. For a long moment, I just stared at the thing, turning it over in my palm. It was still warm, like it had been running. The little green light on the side blinked once, twice. My son had put a tracking device on my truck. My own son. I felt something crack open inside my chest, not anger, not yet. Just hurt. The kind of hurt that sits heavy and deep like a stone dropped into dark water. I walked back into the house, sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the device for another 10 minutes. Elizabeth's photo smiled at me from the mantel. What would you tell me to do, I thought. What would you say? But Elizabeth wasn't here, and I had to figure this out on my own. I called Nicholas that afternoon. "Hey, Dad," he answered on the third ring. "What's up?" "I need to ask you something," I said, keeping my voice steady. "And I need you to be honest with me." A pause. "Okay. Why did you put a GPS tracker on my truck?" Silence. Long, heavy silence. "Dad, Don't lie to me, Nicholas." He exhaled a shaky sound. "Cassandra and we've been worried about you." "Worried about what?" "Your memory, Dad. You've been forgetting things. Little things, but we just wanted to make sure you were safe, that you weren't getting lost or—" "I'm not losing my memory." My voice was sharper than I intended. "And you didn't answer my question. Why the tracker?" We thought it was the safest way to keep an eye on you without making me feel what Nicholas spied on betrayed." Another pause. "I'm sorry, Dad. I really am. We were just trying to help." I closed my eyes. The worst part was I could hear the sincerity in his voice. He believed what he was saying. But I knew better. Cassandra. This wasn't Nicholas's idea. It was hers. My son might be worried, but he wouldn't do something like this on his own. Cassandra had pushed him into it. I didn't know why yet, but I knew. "Okay," I said quietly. "I hear you." "Dad, I have to go. I'll talk to you later." I hung up before he could respond. I sat there for a long time holding the GPS tracker. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked, and somewhere down the street, a car door slammed. I thought about Elizabeth, about the life we'd built together, about the $220,000 I'd saved over 40 years of work money I'd planned to leave to Nicholas, about this house worth $480,000 sitting on a quiet street in Park Hill. And I thought about Cassandra, my daughter-in-law, the woman my son had married 2 years ago, the woman I'd never quite trusted, though I'd tried. For Nicholas's sake, I'd tried. Now I knew my instincts had been right. I looked down at the GPS tracker in my hand. Then I made a decision. I wasn't going to tell Nicholas I'd found it. Not yet. Instead, I was going to turn the tables. If Cassandra wanted to track someone, I'd give her something to track. I'd plant this device on her car, that red BMW 330i she drove around like she owned the world. And I'd find out exactly what my daughter-in-law was hiding. I stood up, slipped the tracker into my jacket pocket, and walked to the window. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. "All right, Cassandra," I thought. "Let's see what you're really up to." That Saturday afternoon, I walked the 4 houses down to Gerald Murphy's place. The air was crisp, the kind of late March Colorado cold that bites at your face. I needed someone I could trust, someone who wouldn't tell me I was overreacting. Gerald answered on the second knock. He was wearing a flannel shirt and jeans, reading glasses perched on his nose. We'd been neighbors for 15 years, ever since he'd retired from his engineering job and moved here with his late wife. He'd helped me when Elizabeth got sick. I'd helped him after his wife passed. If anyone would understand, it was him. "Daniel," he said, taking one look at my face. "Come in." His living room was neat, practical, military precise. Gerald had served in the Navy before becoming an engineer, and it showed in everything he did. I sat down and told him everything. The GPS tracker, Nicholas's lies about my memory, the phone call, my suspicion about Cassandra. When I finished, Gerald leaned back and crossed his arms. "I told you at the wedding," he said flatly. "See, that woman looked at you like you were a vault she was planning to crack." I remembered. I dismissed it then. Told myself Gerald was being paranoid. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I pulled the GPS tracker from my jacket pocket and set it on his coffee table. "I want to put this on her car. See where she goes. What she's doing." A slow smile spread across Gerald's face. "Counter-surveillance. I like your style." He stood and grabbed a notepad from his desk. "When does she usually leave their place?" "Sunday mornings, 7:30, some yoga class downtown." "Perfect." He scribbled notes. "We'll hit Sky House Denver tomorrow. You plant the tracker while I keep watch." Sunday morning arrived cold and gray. Gerald and I got to Sky House Denver at 7:15, parking my Silverado 2 blocks away. The building was one of those modern high-rises, all glass and steel, the kind that costs more per month than most people make in a year. At 7:28, Cassandra's red BMW 330i pulled out of the underground garage. I watched her drive past yoga mat visible in the back seat. "Now," Gerald said. I moved fast, down the block across the street into the garage entrance. Unit 1804's parking spot was in the corner, shadowed. Perfect. I dropped to my knees, the concrete cold through my jeans. The GPS tracker clicked into place under the rear bumper magnetic mount solid. My hands trembled. Footsteps echoed from somewhere deeper in the garage. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. I twisted the device once more, making sure it was secure, then stood and walked toward the exit. Slow, casual, like I belonged there. 12 minutes. Gerald had the engine running when I climbed back in. "You good?" "Yeah." I was breathing harder than I wanted to admit. "Let's go." For 3 days, I watched that little red dot on my phone screen. It became an obsession. Every time it moved, my phone buzzed. Every location logged itself in my app. Monday work, grocery store, home. Tuesday work, gym, then south. To Littleton. She stayed at an address on South Windermere Street for 3 hours before driving back. Wednesday, the same pattern. Work, home, then Littleton again. Another 3 hours. I showed Gerald the data Wednesday night. "Third time," he said, studying the map. "That's not a coincidence. Who lives there?" "I don't know yet," I said. "But I'm going to find out." Thursday afternoon, I followed her myself. I left my house at 4, drove to a spot 2 blocks from Sky House, and waited. At 4:50, the red dot started moving. I followed at a safe distance, staying 2 or 3 cars back. My Silverado was big enough to blend into Denver traffic. She took I-25 south toward Littleton. The neighborhood was quiet suburban. Big houses, expensive cars. The kind of place where people didn't ask questions. The BMW turned onto South Windermere and pulled into the driveway of 6234. A 2-story house with perfectly manicured landscaping. A black Tesla Model S sat in front of the garage. I parked down the block behind a landscaping truck and waited. At 5:30, the front door opened. A man stepped out, tall, maybe 6'2", dark hair graying at the temples, expensive clothes that fit perfectly. He looked like he'd just walked out of a country club. Cassandra got out of her car, and he kissed her. Not a quick peck, not a friendly greeting, a real kiss. Deep, intimate, the kind that said they'd done this before, many times before. My stomach turned. I grabbed my Nikon from the passenger seat and started shooting. Click, 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 his hand on her waist, her fingers in his hair, the two of them laughing as they walked into the house together. 47 photos. I counted them later. I sat in that truck for another hour watching the windows. Lights came on upstairs, curtains closed. I didn't need to see more. That night, I ran the Tesla's license plate through a database. Gerald had access to one of the perks of knowing an ex-engineer with connections. Dr. Dominic Lancaster, 41 years old, orthopedic surgeon, divorced. Worked at Cherry Creek Medical Plaza. Estimated net worth $1.2 million. She's got expensive taste, Gerald muttered when I showed him the report, but something else nagged at me. I pulled up the tracking app again and scrolled through Saturday's data. There was a stop I'd almost missed, a brief visit to an address in the Denver Tech Center, 20 minutes. 7900 East Union Avenue, Suite 1100. I Googled it. Lockhart Legal Group. The website loaded. Clean. Professional. I clicked on Practice Areas, Estate Planning, Trust Administration, Probate Law, Guardianship Services, Guardianship. The word sat there on the screen like a lead weight. I clicked deeper. Read about conservatorships, about how family members could petition the court to declare someone incapacitated, how they could take control of finances, medical decisions, living arrangements, how they could lock someone away in a nursing home and drain their bank accounts while they were still alive. My hands went cold. The $220,000 in my savings account, the $480,000 house Elizabeth and I had bought 40 years ago. Everything we'd built. Everything I'd planned to leave to Nicholas. Cassandra wasn't just cheating on my son. She was positioning herself to take it all. I sat back in my chair staring at those words on the screen. Estate planning. Guardianship services. I thought about the GPS tracker Nicholas had planted on my truck. The lies about my memory. The way Cassandra had started asking Nicholas to check on me more often. It wasn't concern, it was groundwork. Building a case. Creating a pattern. Making it look like I was declining, forgetting things, becoming a danger to myself. And once she had enough evidence, she'd go to those lawyers, file the paperwork, have me declared incompetent. My chest felt tight. Not from my heart condition, from pure cold realization. Estate planning lawyers, guardianship specialists. Cassandra wasn't just planning something. She was planning to take everything. My money, my freedom, maybe even my life. Wednesday morning, Gerald called before I'd finished my first cup of coffee. "Get over here," he said. "Now." I walked the 4 houses down to his place. Gerald was at his computer printouts covering his desk, 3 browser windows open. "Sit," he said. I pulled up a chair. "I ran a full background check on Cassandra Monroe," Gerald said, spinning the monitor toward me. "Born 1995, Boston. But here's what matters." He pulled up a scanned document. "With marriage certificate, 2019. Groom Richard Allen Sterling, age 53. Bride Cassandra Marie Monroe, age 24. I stared at the names. 29 years difference. "See, where is he now?" Gerald pulled up another document. Death certificate. Gone. April 2021. Age 55. Cause of death, cerebrovascular accident. Stroke. The timeline clicked into place. 18 months. She'd been married to him for only 18 months. "Jesus," I whispered. "It gets worse," Gerald said. Richard Sterling was a real estate developer. Net worth about $2 million. When he passed away, Cassandra inherited $400,000 in cash and assets. No kids. No other family except a sister. Over the next few days, we dug deeper. Gerald had connections. Navy buddies, people who knew how to find public records that weren't advertised. We found property transfers, probate documents, old newspaper obituaries. Richard Sterling had been successful, healthy. No history of heart disease or strokes in his family, and he'd passed away within 2 years of marrying a woman 30 years younger. Thursday afternoon, I found Margaret Sterling's phone number buried in an online memorial guest book. She lived in San Diego. I called her. "Hello." Her voice was wary. "Mrs. Sterling, my name is Daniel Williams. I'm calling from Denver. I need to talk to you about your brother Richard." Silence. "What about him?" "I believe his widow is now married to my son, and I think she's planning to do the same thing to my family that she did to yours." A sharp intake of breath. "Cassandra, yes." "Oh God." Her voice broke. "I knew it. I told the police, but they wouldn't listen." For the next 40 minutes, Margaret told me everything. Richard had been healthy. He ran half marathons. He'd hiked Yosemite just months before meeting Cassandra at some charity gala. She was beautiful, charming, and he'd been lonely after his divorce. 6 months later, they were married, Margaret said. And after the wedding, everything changed. Richard started looking tired. He missed family dinners. Cassandra said he was working too hard, that he was stressed. But when I saw him at Christmas, Daniel, he didn't look like my brother. He looked hollow. What happened after that? 4 months later, massive stroke. The doctors said it came out of nowhere. He was only 55 years old. 55, and then he passed away, and she's got $400,000, and she's disappeared before we can even hold a funeral. My hands gripped the phone tighter. "Did you suspect?" Of course I suspected. I hired a private investigator. But what could we prove? The doctors said natural causes. There was no autopsy. No criminal investigation. Cassandra left California within 2 weeks. The investigator couldn't find anything concrete, just a pattern that looked wrong. "She married my son 2 years ago," I said quietly. Margaret's voice cracked. "Then you need to get him away from her. Right now. Because if she did what I think she did to Richard..." She paused. "Your son could be next." When I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, staring at Elizabeth's photo on the mantel. Cassandra had done this before. She'd married a wealthy man, made him sick. He passed away suddenly. She inherited everything. Nicholas wasn't her first target. He was her second. The following Tuesday, Nicholas stopped by to borrow my Silverado. His Ford Escape was in the shop for a recall, he said. He'd return it tonight. "No problem," I said. "Keys are on the hook." After he left, I stood in the driveway looking at his Escape sitting where my truck usually parked. Something pulled me toward it. Instinct. Or maybe just paranoia that had turned out to be right too many times. I opened the driver's door and looked inside. Too clean. Nicholas had never been this neat. I checked the back seat. Nothing. Checked the trunk. Nothing. Then I reached under the driver's seat. My fingers touched paper. I pulled out 3 brochures. Glossy. Professional. Sunrise Senior Living. Memory care you can trust. Brookdale, Denver. Specialized Alzheimer's and dementia support. Balfour Assisted Living. Compassionate care for your loved one. There were notes in the margins. Nicholas's handwriting. $5,500 per month base rate. $7,800 for memory care wing. Ask about move-in timeline. Does Dad meet criteria? I sat down hard on the curb, the brochures trembling in my hands. My son was planning to put me in a nursing home. Not someday. Not eventually. Now. When Nicholas returned that evening to swap vehicles, I was waiting in the driveway. I held up the brochures. "What is this?" His face went white. "Dad, you're looking at nursing homes for me. It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is, Nicholas, because it looks like you're planning to lock me away." "Cassandra's worried about you." His voice rose. "She said you left the stove on twice last week, that you got lost driving home from King Soopers. She thinks you're declining, Dad, and I'm scared. I never left the stove on. I never got lost." "She's lying to you." "Stutu, why would she lie?" "Because she wants my money." My voice cracked. "She wants this house, Nicholas. She's done this before." "You're being paranoid." "Give me one example," I said, stepping closer. "One time you personally witnessed me forgetting something. Not something Cassandra told you, something you saw with your own eyes." He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He looked away. "You can't," I said quietly, "because there isn't one. I need to go." He snatched the keys from my hand and moved toward his escape. "Nicholas, please. I'm done with this conversation." He drove away. I stood alone in the driveway watching his taillights disappear. Inside, I sat at the kitchen table. The brochures were still in my hand, damp from my grip. My son didn't believe me. He believed her. I thought about Richard Sterling, about Margaret's voice breaking when she said, "Your son could be next." About how Richard had looked tired, how he'd lost his life at 55 with nobody asking questions. I thought about the $220,000 in my savings, the $480,000 house Elizabeth and I had built together. Everything Cassandra was positioning herself to take. And I thought about Nicholas, my boy, the one I'd taught to ride a bike, to change oil, to stand up for what's right. The man who was now planning to institutionalize me based on his wife's lies. I had two choices: tell Nicholas everything now, show him the photos of Cassandra with Dr. Lancaster, tell him about Richard Sterling's sudden passing, lay it all out and hope he believed me. But if he didn't, if Cassandra's manipulation ran too deep, he'd warn her. She'd disappear, adjust her plans, and I'd lose any chance of stopping her. Or I could wait, gather evidence so clear, so undeniable, that even Nicholas couldn't ignore it. Proof that would force him to see what his wife really was, even if it meant walking into whatever trap she was building, even if it meant danger. The first option was safer for me. The second option might save my son's life. I looked at Elizabeth's photo on the mantel. Her smile. The certainty in her eyes. What would you tell me, Elizabeth? But I already knew. You protect your children, no matter the cost. If Nicholas's discovery of those nursing home brochures hit you hard, type 1 in the comments. Fair warning ahead, the next part includes fictional details added for dramatic effect. Feel free to pause here if you'd prefer. Wednesday afternoon, I walked back to Gerald's house. I had to tell someone. I couldn't carry this alone anymore. He let me in without a word, took one look at my face, and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. We sat at his kitchen table. "Margaret was right," I said. "Cassandra caused her first husband's passing, and now she's planning the same thing with Nicholas, and with me." Gerald's jaw tightened. "What do you need?" "Proof. Something Nicholas can't deny. Something so clear he'll have to believe me." Gerald thought for a moment, then leaned forward. "Record them. Cassandra and the doctor. Get them talking about their plan." "How?" "Your iPhone has a voice recorder. You know where they meet. Next time the GPS shows her going to Littleton, you follow. Find a way to get close enough to hear through a window, a door, whatever. You record everything. That's risky. CTO, everything about this is risky, Dan. But if you get them on tape admitting what they're planning. He paused. That's something even Nicholas can't ignore. Thursday we practiced. Gerald had me test the recording app from different distances through his closed windows with background noise. We figured out that if a window was open, even a crack, the audio would be clear enough. You get one shot at this, Gerald said. Don't waste it. Friday morning, I woke at 6. My hands shook as I made coffee. I checked the GPS app on my phone, obsessively waiting. At 10:15, the red dot started moving. Cassandra's BMW was heading south, toward Littleton. I grabbed my keys and drove fast, my heart pounding against my ribs. Not from exertion, from fear. From the knowledge that I was about to hear something I couldn't unhear. I reached South Windermere Street by 10:30 and parked 3 houses down half-hidden behind a landscaping truck. The Tesla was in the driveway. Dr. Lancaster was home. I walked around the side of the property, staying low. There was a row of jasmine bushes along the back of the house, thick and tall enough to hide behind. A window on the first floor was open just a few inches, but enough. I crouched behind the bushes and pulled out my iPhone. Opened the voice recorder app. My fingers were slick with sweat. At 10:45, Cassandra's BMW pulled into the driveway. I hit record. The audio started at 10:47 a.m. I know because I checked the timestamp later over and over, making sure it was real. Cassandra's voice came first, muffled but audible. I'm tired of waiting, Dom. It's been 2 years. Dr. Lancaster's voice deeper. These things take time, Cass. We can't rush it. 2 years, and we're still playing this game with Daniel and Nicholas like they're actual obstacles. Your husband loves his father. If we move too fast, he'll get suspicious. He won't. I've been laying groundwork for months. We have 5 documented incidents of Daniel's cognitive decline already. We just need one more, and then we file for guardianship. My stomach turned. 6 incidents, Lancaster said. That's what Lockhart said we'd need to make it airtight in court. Then we'll create a 6th. He left the stove on. He got lost driving. He forgot to pay bills. Whatever. It doesn't matter, Nicholas believes all of it. And after the guardianship goes through, 6 months, maybe less, we take control of his finances. The house is worth $480,000. He's got $220 in savings. That's $700,000 total, Dom. We split it and we're done. $700,000. Everything Elizabeth and I had built. Everything I'd saved for 40 years. What about Daniel himself? Lancaster asked. He's not going to just disappear quietly into some nursing home. Cassandra laughed. It was a cold sound. That's where you come in. You're his cardiologist on paper now, remember? We have access to his medication records. He had that stent put in 3 years ago. His heart's already compromised. Adjust his meds, tell Nicholas it's routine, and let nature take its course. A man his age, heart condition, high stress, no one's going to ask questions. I couldn't breathe. And if that doesn't work, Lancaster pressed, then accidents happen. Nicholas drives those mountain roads all the time. His brakes could fail, or Daniel could have a fall. Old men fall all the time, Dom, especially ones with memory problems. You've thought this through. I've done it before. Silence. Richard Sterling, she continued. You think that was an accident? He was 55 and healthy when I married him. 18 months later, he passed away, and I've got $400,000. This is the same thing, just bigger. My vision blurred. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. They talked for another 12 minutes. About how they'd split the money, about where they'd go afterward, maybe Europe, maybe the Caribbean. About how Nicholas would be devastated, but would eventually move on. About how I'd just be another old man who passed away from natural causes, forgotten within a year. At 11:05 a.m., the recording stopped. 18 minutes and 42 seconds total. I stayed behind those bushes for another 5 minutes, my whole body shaking. Nausea rolled through me in waves. My hands were clenched so tight, my knuckles ached. When I finally stood, my legs barely held me. I walked back to my Silverado, climbed in, and sat there staring at my phone. The recording was right there. Crystal clear. Every word. Proof. I drove straight to Gerald's house. He opened the door, took one look at me, and pulled me inside. "What happened?" "I got it," I said. My voice sounded hollow. I recorded them. 18 minutes. "Let me hear it." I played the recording. Gerald's face went white. When Cassandra's voice said, "Adjust his meds and let nature take its course," he stood up and paced the room. When it ended, he turned to me. "Jesus Christ, Dan. Call the police. Right now." "I can't." "What do you mean you can't?" "This is a criminal conspiracy to cause serious harm. This is—" "Nicholas won't believe it," I said quietly. "He's too far gone. If I go to him with this, he'll think I staged it. He'll think I hired actors or manipulated the audio. Cassandra's got him so twisted around that he'll find a way to explain it away." Gerald stared at me. "So what the hell are you going to do?" "Wait," I said. "The GPS tracker is still on Cassandra's car. Eventually, Nicholas is going to find it. He services her car, sometimes oil changes, tire rotations. He's going to see it, and he's going to confront me about it. And when he does, he's going to demand to know why I put it there. And then I show him this recording. Not before, because if he finds the tracker himself, he'll know I had a reason. He'll know I wasn't just being paranoid. He'll listen." Gerald sat down slowly. "You're playing a dangerous game." "I know. Suto. She's planning to harm you, Dan, and she's planning to harm your son. You're sitting on proof of a conspiracy to cause serious harm, and you're telling me you're just going to—" "Wait. Nicholas has to discover it himself," I said. "Or he won't believe me. And if he doesn't believe me, Cassandra wins. She disappears, changes her identity, and we never see her again. But Nicholas stays broken. He stays manipulated. And maybe she comes back someday and finishes what she started." Gerald rubbed his face. "You're right. I hate it, but you're right." I looked at my phone. The recording was still there. 18 minutes and 42 seconds of Cassandra Monroe admitting she'd done this before and was planning to do it again. I had the smoking gun, but I couldn't fire it. Not yet. Not until Nicholas was ready to hear the shot. Wednesday of the 4th week, my phone rang. "Nicholas." I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Dad," he said. His voice was tight. "Cassandra says you've been following her. Is that true?" My blood went cold. She'd noticed. Of course she'd noticed. A black Silverado showing up in Littleton 3 times in 2 weeks. I'd been careful, but not careful enough. Nicholas. "She's scared, Dad. She says you've been watching her, sitting outside Dr. Lancaster's house. She thinks you're having paranoid episodes." "I'm not paranoid." "Then why were you following her?" I couldn't answer. Not without revealing everything. Not without showing my hand before Nicholas was ready to see it. The silence stretched. "Dad, maybe we should set up an appointment with Dr. Morrison, your primary care doctor, just to make sure everything's okay." "I'm fine." "You're not acting fine. First, the memory issues Cassandra's been noticing, now this." Dad, I'm worried. Nicholas, I don't need a doctor. Then explain to me why you were following my wife. I closed my eyes. Anything I said would sound like exactly what Cassandra wanted it to sound like. Paranoid, delusional, the ramblings of a man losing his mind. I can't explain right now, I said finally. You can't, or you won't. I can't. Another silence. Okay, Nicholas said quietly. Okay. I'll call you later. He hung up. I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone. Cassandra had just turned my investigation into evidence of my decline. Every piece of surveillance I'd done, every moment I'd spent gathering proof, she'd twisted it into symptoms. She was building her case, and Nicholas was helping her do it. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Days 1 through 3, I couldn't stop checking the GPS app. Every time Cassandra's red dot moved, my heart rate spiked. Every trip to Littleton felt like a countdown. Every stop at Lockhart Legal Group felt like another nail in my coffin. Gerald told me to stop looking at it. You're making yourself sick, Dan. But I couldn't stop. Days 4 through 7, Nicholas left voicemails. I didn't answer most of them. Dad, it's me. Call me back. We need to talk about getting you some help. Dad, I talked to Dr. Morrison's office. They can see you next Tuesday. Dad, please, I'm scared for you. Each message made it worse. He thought he was losing me. And in a way, he was right. I was disappearing into this nightmare, and I couldn't tell him why. Days 8 through 10, I stopped eating properly. Toast for breakfast, maybe a sandwich for lunch. Gerald started showing up with casseroles his neighbor had made, insisting I eat. You look like hell, he said bluntly. When's the last time you slept? I don't know, said Dan. I can't sleep, Gerald. Every time I close my eyes, I hear that recording. Adjust his meds and let nature take its course. I hear it over and over. He sat down across from me. This is killing you. I know. Day 11, I almost broke. I almost called Nicholas and told him everything. I had my phone in my hand. His number pulled up my thumb, hovering over the call button. But I couldn't do it. Not yet. Not until he found the tracker himself. Days 12 through 14, the paranoia got worse. I started checking the locks on my doors 3-4 times a night. I'd hear a car outside and look through the curtains, convinced it was Cassandra or Dr. Lancaster coming to finish what they'd started. Gerald found me at 2 in the morning one night, standing in my driveway in my pajamas, staring at my Silverado. What are you doing? He asked, making sure no one tampered with the brakes. He didn't say anything, just walked me back inside and made me sit down. You can't keep doing this, he said quietly. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. Give Nicholas the recording. Show him the photos. Make him listen. He won't believe me. Not yet. Sunday came. Nicholas sent a text. Dinner tonight, Cassandra's making pot roast. We'd love to see you. I stared at that message for 10 minutes. The idea of sitting at a table with Cassandra, pretending everything was normal while she smiled and planned my murder, I couldn't do it. Can't tonight. Sorry. His response came 5 minutes later. Okay. Love you, Dad. I set the phone down and put my head in my hands. Gerald came over that afternoon. He took one look at me and shook his head. Dan, you look terrible. You've lost weight. You're not sleeping. This is eating you alive. I'm fine. You're not fine. Maybe you should just give him the recording. End this. Not yet. He might not find the GPS for weeks, months. You're going to destroy yourself waiting. He'll find it, I said. He services her car, changes her oil. He'll see it eventually. And if he doesn't, I didn't have an answer for that. Monday morning, March 25th. I woke at 6. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at nothing. My phone rang at 8:15. Nicholas. I answered. Dad. His voice was shaking. I need to talk to you. Right now. I found something. My heart stopped. What did you find? I can't talk about it over the phone. Can you come to the apartment, please? I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up and stood my legs unsteady. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for, the moment I'd been dreading. In 15 minutes, I'd sit down with my son and play him an 18-minute recording of his wife planning to kill both of us. In 15 minutes, Nicholas's world was going to collapse, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Monday morning, 7 o'clock. I heard a car door slam in the driveway. I looked out the window. Nicholas's Ford Escape. He climbed out, moving slowly, like every muscle hurt. I opened the door before he could knock. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hair uncombed, his shirt wrinkled. He hadn't slept. Maybe hadn't even tried. Dad, he said, his voice hoarse. Come in. He walked past me into the living room and collapsed onto the old couch, the same one he'd sat on as a kid doing homework, watching cartoons. Now he sat there with his head in his hands, shoulders shaking. I sat down next to him and waited. I got a flat tire yesterday, he said finally. Sunday afternoon. I was coming back from the gym. I pulled over to change it, and when I jacked up the car, he looked at me. I found something. What did you find? He pulled a small black device from his jacket pocket and set it on the coffee table. A GPS tracker, TrackSafe Pro. The same brand I'd planted on Cassandra's BMW. Same kind you put on my truck, Dad, he said quietly. Exact same kind. My chest tightened. You checked the app? Yeah, I downloaded it, synced the device. He pulled out his phone and showed me. 3 months of data, every trip she made. Littleton, the Denver Tech Center, everywhere. I watched him scroll through the locations. 6234 South Windermere Street. Lockhart Legal Group. Over and over. I checked our bank account after that. He continued. Joint account. The one we opened when we got married. He looked at me and his eyes were full of something I'd never seen before. Pure, cold rage. $15,800. Gone. Small withdrawals over 8 months. 200 here, 500 there. She said it was groceries, gas, her gym membership. Nicholas. She lied about everything, Dad. Everything. His voice cracked. And I believed her. I believed her over you, my own father. You didn't know. I should have known. He stood pacing. The nursing home brochures, I found those because she told me to research them. She said you were declining, that you needed help. And I just went along with it. Son, I'm sorry. He turned to face me, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry for the GPS tracker on your truck, for planning to put you in a home, for not believing you when you tried to warn me. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so damn sorry. I stood and pulled him into a hug. He broke down, completely sobbing against my shoulder like he hadn't done since he was a boy. It's okay, I said quietly. You're here now. That's what matters. When he finally pulled away, he wiped his face with his sleeve. Tell me everything. Please. I need to know the truth. All of it. I walked to the kitchen and came back with my phone. Sit down. There's something you need to hear. He sat. I pulled up the voice recording. 18 minutes, 42 seconds. My finger hovered over the play button. Are you ready? I asked. No, but play it anyway. I hit play. Cassandra's voice filled the room. I'm tired of waiting, Dom. It's been 2 years. Nicholas's face went pale. For the first 5 minutes, he sat frozen, listening. His hands gripped the armrests of the couch, knuckles white. When Cassandra said, "We take control of his finances, 700,000 total." Nicholas closed his eyes. When Dr. Lancaster said, "Adjust his meds and let nature take its course," Nicholas stood up and started pacing, his breathing shallow. And when Cassandra laughed and said, "Accidents happen. Nicholas drives those mountain roads all the time. His brakes could fail." Nicholas ran to the bathroom. I heard him vomit. I paused the recording. He came back 5 minutes later, his face ashen, leaning against the doorframe. "Keep going," he said hoarsely. I played the rest, Cassandra admitting she'd done this before. Richard Sterling, the $400,000, the 18-month timeline. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Nicholas sat back down slowly. "She was planning to harm you," he whispered. "She was planning to harm both of us." "Yes. And she's done it before." I told him everything then, about Margaret Sterling's call, about Richard, healthy, vibrant, who passed away at 55, about the private investigator who couldn't prove anything but knew something was wrong, about the $400,000 inheritance. "I'm target number 2, Nicholas said, staring at nothing. "She married a rich man. He passed away. Suddenly she took his money, and now she's doing the same thing to us." "Yes." "How long have you known?" "A few weeks." He looked at me, hurt flashing across his face. "Why didn't you tell me?" I met his eyes. "Because you wouldn't have believed me. Not until you discovered it yourself. If I'd come to you with this recording 3 weeks ago, what would you have done?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Then I would have thought you staged it, that you were paranoid, that you needed help." "Exactly. But if I'd believed you, you'd have confronted her. She would have disappeared, changed her identity, and you'd have spent the rest of your life wondering if I was right." I paused. "You had to find the GPS yourself. You had to see the evidence with your own eyes, or you'd never truly believe me." He nodded slowly. "You were right." By afternoon, we were sitting at my kitchen table, everything spread out between us. The GPS tracker, the photos of Cassandra and Dr. Lancaster, the recording on my phone, the nursing home brochures, Margaret Sterling's phone number written on a piece of paper. "What do we do now?" Nicholas asked. "We hit Lancaster first," I said. "He's the weak link. Cassandra's a sociopath she won't break. But Lancaster's not as committed. He's in this for money, not because he enjoys it. We show him we have proof, threaten to destroy his career, his medical license. He'll fold. And then we use him to trap Cassandra, get her to confess on record, and we end this." Nicholas looked at the photos of Cassandra kissing Lancaster outside that house in Littleton. His jaw tightened. "I'll go see him today," he said. "He doesn't know that I know. I'll catch him off guard." "Are you sure you're ready for that?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." I studied my son. 24 hours ago, he'd been trying to put me in a nursing home. Now he was planning to confront the man his wife was having an affair with. "We do this right," I said quietly, "or we don't do it at all. She's dangerous, Nicholas. Cornered animals are the most dangerous kind. I know. He stood grabbing his keys. I'll call you when I'm done. I watched him walk to his car, his shoulders squared, his jaw set. He wasn't the manipulated boy anymore. He was a man with a mission. But as I watched him drive away, fear twisted in my gut. He was going to confront Dr. Dominic Lancaster, a man who'd conspired to cause serious harm, a man who had everything to lose. Cornered animals were dangerous, and I'd just sent my son to corner one. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. If Nicholas needed backup, I was going to be there. Dr. Dominic Lancaster opened the door at 6234 South Windermere expecting a patient. Instead, he found my son. Nicholas. Lancaster's smile faltered. What are you? We need to talk. Right now. Nicholas stepped forward, not aggressive, just decisive. It wasn't a request. Lancaster glanced past him looking for Cassandra's BMW. It wasn't there. Fine, come in. I'd followed Nicholas from my house and was parking down the block when I saw him disappear inside. I moved closer, staying within earshot. Through the window, I heard Nicholas's voice. I found a GPS tracker on my wife's car yesterday. 3 months of data. This address came up a lot. So did Lockhart Legal Group. Silence. I also found $15,800 missing from our account. And I have an 18-minute recording of you and Cassandra planning to harm my father and me. Lancaster went pale. Now that's not don't. Nicholas's voice was ice. I heard every word. The guardianship plan, the fake medical records, the plan to manipulate my father's heart medication, the part where my brakes might accidentally fail. Lancaster sank into a chair. Jesus Christ. So here's what happens. You tell me everything. Then you call Cassandra and end it. Or I send this recording to your ex-wife, the medical board, and the police. Your career ends. Your life ends. Lancaster put his head in his hands. She said it would be easy, that nobody would know. He's 67 and healthy. She made up the dementia, made up everything. The guardianship was her idea. She said we'd wait, let nature take its course. Then she started talking about adjusting medications. I knew it was wrong, but the money, $700,000. We were going to split it. She said her first husband passed away the same way that nobody suspected anything. Richard Sterling, I know about him. At that moment, I stepped inside. Nicholas glanced at me, then turned back to Lancaster. Call her, now. Tell her it's over. Lancaster's hands shook as he dialed. Put it on speaker. Dom! Cassandra's voice bright. I can't talk long, I'm at the grocery store. It's over. Lancaster's voice barely a whisper. Pause. What? Nicholas knows everything. He has a recording. I'm cutting ties with you. Don't contact me again. Wait, what recording? Goodbye, Cassandra. He hung up. The alliance between them, 2 years in the making, shattered in 30 seconds. Nicholas and I walked out. He didn't speak until we were in his car. Then he started trembling. Not from fear, from the adrenaline crash. You okay? I asked. No, but I will be. That evening, Nicholas stayed at my house. He couldn't go back to Sky House. Not yet. Around 11, I went to my workshop. Nicholas followed. We worked in silence, me sanding a cabinet, him organizing tools. The smell of sawdust filled the air. How did I not see it? He asked finally. 2 years, Dad. I set down the sandpaper. Love makes us blind. We see what we want to see. Your mother taught me that. Mom would have seen through Cassandra in 5 minutes. Maybe, but even she made mistakes. She married me after all. Nicholas smiled faintly. Real love doesn't isolate you, I continued. It doesn't make you doubt yourself or turn you against your family. What Cassandra did that wasn't love, that was control. I should have known. You're here now. That's what matters. What happens tomorrow? Tomorrow we face her. Together. Gerald will witness. We play the recording, give her a choice sign, divorce papers, and leave, or we call the police. You think she'll sign? I think she's smart enough to know when she's beaten. And if she's not, then we let the police handle it. At 3 a.m., I found Nicholas asleep on the couch, still fully dressed. I grabbed Elizabeth's old quilt from the closet, the patchwork one she'd made 20 years ago, and draped it over him. He looked young in the dim light, like the boy who used to fall asleep on this same couch after playing outside. Tomorrow we'd face Cassandra. Tomorrow we'd end this. But tonight, my son was home, and he was safe. Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. I texted Gerald. Today, 9:30. Bring your witness face. His response came immediately. I'll be there. I looked at Nicholas, still asleep on the couch. Today we'd go to Sky House together. Today we'd confront the woman who'd tried to destroy us both. And today, this nightmare would finally end. Still watching after Cassandra's mask fell, drop exposed below, to show you're here for the resolution. Please note this story blends factual patterns with fictional details for educational storytelling. No obligation to continue if it's not your thing. Tuesday morning, 9:30, Unit 1804, Sky House, Denver, the moment we'd been preparing for. Nicholas had sent the text at 7 a.m. We need to talk. 9:30, at home. Dad will be there too. Cassandra's response had come 10 minutes later. Okay. Everything all right? Nicholas hadn't replied. At 8:45, Gerald and I arrived at Sky House. We took the elevator to the 18th floor in silence. Nicholas was waiting at the door already inside, keys in hand. You ready? I asked. He nodded, but his hands were shaking. We went inside. The apartment was modern, open concept. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Denver. Expensive furniture. Everything Cassandra had wanted. I walked to the coffee table and set down my phone, the one with the 18-minute, 42-second recording. I placed it in the center screen facing up. Visible, deliberate. A power move. Gerald positioned himself near the window, arms crossed. A silent witness. Nicholas paced. Back and forth. Back and forth. Nicholas, I said quietly. We're in control here. Remember that. He stopped pacing, looked at me, nodded. At 9:28, we heard the elevator ding down the hall. Footsteps approaching. A key in the lock. The door opened. Cassandra stepped inside, pulling off her sunglasses. She was wearing yoga clothes, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked relaxed, confident. Then she saw us. 3 men standing in her living room, waiting. Her smile faltered. What is this? She asked, looking from Nicholas to me to Gerald. Sit down, Nicholas said. His voice was flat. Nicholas, what's going on? Why is your father here? Who is this? She gestured at Gerald. I said, sit down. Something in his tone made her move. She walked slowly to the couch, her eyes darting between us, calculating. Looking for an exit. Looking for an angle. She sat. Nicholas stood across from her, arms crossed. I moved to the coffee table. Gerald stayed by the window. Cassandra, I said quietly. I think you know what this is about. I have no idea what you're talking about. I picked up my phone, held it up so she could see the screen. The voice recorder app. The timestamp 18 minutes 42 seconds. Her eyes widened, just for a second. Then the mask came back. What is that? You know what it is. Nicholas nodded at me. I pressed play. Cassandra's voice filled the room. I'm tired of waiting, Dom. It's been 2 years. Her face went white. For 18 minutes, no one spoke. We just listened. I watched Cassandra's face the entire time. Watched every micro-expression. Every tell. At 2 minutes, when her recorded voice said, "We have 5 documented incidents of Daniel's cognitive decline already," her jaw tightened. Her hands clenched. At 5:30, when she talked about taking control of my finances, $700,000, she looked at me. Just for a second. Her eyes were cold, empty. At 10 minutes, when Dr. Lancaster's voice asked, "What about Daniel himself?" and she laughed that cold laugh, Cassandra realized we knew everything. Every detail, every plan. Her eyes started darting. To the door, to the windows, to Nicholas, looking for a way out. At 15 minutes, when her voice said, "Accidents happen. Nicholas drives those mountain roads all the time. His brakes could fail." Nicholas made a sound, a choked noise in the back of his throat. Cassandra looked at him then, really looked at him, saw the horror on his face, the betrayal. At 18 minutes and 42 seconds, the recording stopped. Richard Sterling. You think that was an accident? He was 55 and healthy when I married him. 18 months later, he passed away, and I've got $400,000. This is the same thing, just bigger. Silence. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence stretched. 1 minute. 2, 3. It was suffocating. Finally, Cassandra spoke. Her voice was calm, too calm. Where did you get that? I was there, I said. Outside Dominic's window. Last Friday, I heard every word. She turned to Nicholas. You can't believe this. Your father is sick. He's been stalking me for weeks. This is illegal recording. It won't hold up in court. It's... Stop. Nicholas's voice cut through her words like a knife. Just stop. Nicholas. I heard you. His voice was shaking now. Not from fear. From rage. I heard you planning to harm my father. Planning to harm me. I heard you talk about Richard Sterling, about how you did this before. That's not... I found the GPS tracker on your car, Cassandra. I saw the bank statements. $15,800. I saw the trips to Littleton, to Lockhart Legal Group. I saw everything. Her mask was cracking. I could see it. The confident, charming woman who'd walked through that door 10 minutes ago was disappearing. You don't understand, she said. Her voice had changed. Less controlled, more desperate. Your father has been harassing me, following me. He planted that tracker. He's trying to turn you against me because he's always hated me. I don't hate you, I said quietly. I never hated you. I just saw you, really saw you. She turned to me, and for a second the mask fell completely. Her eyes were different, cold, calculating. The same eyes that had watched Richard Sterling decline. The same eyes that had planned to manipulate my heart medication. The same eyes that had talked about accidents on mountain roads. You have no idea what you're doing, she said. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm protecting my son. From what? From someone who loves him, who's taken care of him, who's built a life with him. From someone who married him for his father's money, Nicholas said. From someone who planned to put my father in a nursing home and drain his accounts. From someone who talked about making his brakes fail. The words hung in the air. Cassandra looked around the room, at me, at Nicholas, at Gerald by the window. She was trapped, completely, utterly trapped. No exits, no angles, no way to talk her way out. We had the recording, we had the GPS data, we had the bank statements, we had Margaret Sterling's testimony about Richard. We had everything, and she knew it. The silence stretched again. This time it was different, heavier, final. Then something changed in her face. The desperation faded. The calculation stopped. What replaced it was worse. Acceptance. She leaned back on the couch, crossed her legs, and looked at Nicholas with something that might have been amusement. So, she said softly. What now? The mask had fallen, and underneath there was nothing but ice. The mask had fallen. What came out of her mouth next still haunts me. Cassandra leaned back, that cold smile on her face. All right. You want the truth? Let me tell you about Richard Sterling. Nicholas went rigid. Richard was easy, she said conversationally. A lonely widower, 53, desperate for companionship. I met him at a charity gala. He couldn't believe someone like me would look at him. She smiled. I played the loving wife for 18 months, long enough to seem legitimate, long enough that when he passed away, no one asked questions. You ended his life, Nicholas whispered. I accelerated the timeline. Richard had diabetes, high blood pressure. His doctor said maybe 10 years left. I just helped things along. Medication adjustments, small changes. Nothing anyone would notice. When he had that stroke, she shrugged. Tragic, but not suspicious. I was the grieving widow. $400,000. And I moved on. My hands clenched. Why? I asked. Why not? Richard wasn't using that money. He was going to pass away anyway. I just made sure I benefited. And now us, I said. You were the obstacle, she said, turning to me. Nicholas would never be fully mine with you around. The guardianship plan was perfect, legal, clean. Once you were declared incompetent, I'd control everything. And if you became a problem, she gestured vaguely. My men your age have heart attacks all the time. Nicholas stood abruptly. And me, when was my accident supposed to happen? Cassandra looked almost amused. Undecided. You're useful, Nicholas. Easy to control. Good income. Maybe I'd keep you. Or not. Depended on how inconvenient you became. Nicholas moved. Fast. Gerald caught his arm. She's not worth it, son. Cassandra laughed. Look at you. So emotional. So weak. That's always been your problem. You feel too much. Emotions are burdens. She looked at me. Like your old man father. Like his late wife, Elizabeth. All that love, all that grief, pathetic. Get out, Nicholas said, voice deadly calm. Not until we settle terms, I said. You move out today. Sign divorce papers uncontested. Return the $15,800 and disappear. Or what, that recording won't be admissible in criminal court. Colorado is two-party consent. Civil court has different rules, Gerald said. Margaret Sterling would love to file wrongful death. With this recording, she'd have a strong case. Years of depositions. Your name in every newspaper. And Dr. Lancaster, I added. The medical board would love to hear about fake medical records conspiracy to commit fraud. He'd lose everything. Plus, Gerald continued, we have contacts. Your family in Boston, your trust fund family gets copies of everything. Cassandra's smile faded. You're bluffing. Try me, I said. Silence stretched. Finally, she stood. Fine. I'll sign your papers. But understand this. She looked at Nicholas. You'll never trust anyone again. Every woman you meet, you'll wonder if she's like me. That's my legacy. I'll be in your head forever. Get out. She packed for 20 minutes. 2 suitcases. At the door, she paused. Some things were real. At the beginning. Nicholas looked at her. No. Nothing was real. Not with someone who talks about ending a man's life like it's a business transaction. That's not love. That's not even human. You're right. It's not. She smiled. And I sleep just fine. The door closed. Nicholas collapsed onto the couch, head in hands. Dad, did I just let a killer walk away? Should we have called the police? I sat beside him. Justice doesn't always come with handcuffs. Sometimes it means protecting the people you love. You're safe. I'm safe. She's gone. Margaret can file her lawsuit. Lancaster will face consequences, and that recording, we still have it. If she ever tries this again, we have proof. But she got away with it. She got away with money, Gerald said. But not you, not your father, not the life she was building. And if she comes back, we have her confession. Nicholas looked up. How do you live with that? I thought about Elizabeth, about protecting our son. You live with it because the alternative was worse. A criminal trial where you'd relive every moment. Her lawyers finding technicalities. Her coming back for revenge. I paused. This way you're free, and she knows we're watching. Nicholas nodded slowly, exhausted, hollowed out. It's over, I said. Finally, it's over. But even as I said it, I wondered if it really was. Wednesday morning, the day after Cassandra left, Nicholas filed for divorce. Thursday, he had his first therapy appointment. Twice a week, his therapist said. For at least 6 months. Maybe longer. I called Margaret Sterling that afternoon. Daniel, she said when she heard my voice. Did it work? Did he believe you? He believed me. She's gone. And Margaret, I have something you need to hear. I sent her the recording, all 18 minutes and 42 seconds. She called back an hour later, crying. Finally, we can prove what she did to Richard. That weekend, Margaret flew to Denver. We met at a coffee shop downtown, Nicholas, Margaret, and her lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, who'd specialized in wrongful death cases for 20 years. This recording won't work in criminal court, the lawyer said. But in civil court, it's gold. We can file a wrongful death lawsuit. Make Cassandra's life very difficult. Very expensive. Do it, Margaret said. The following week, Nicholas sent copies of everything to Dr. Dominic Lancaster's ex-wife. The affair, the recording, the conspiracy. She filed a malpractice suit within 48 hours. Contacted the Colorado Medical Board the same day. Lancaster's destruction was swift and thorough. His medical license was suspended pending investigation. 3 weeks later, it was revoked permanently. His practice closed. Patients were transferred to other doctors. The Littleton house went on the market. The Tesla was repossessed when he couldn't make payments. By June, he was working from a spare bedroom, doing online consultations for a fraction of his former income. Gerald drove past his house one day and reported back, foreclosure signs up. He's done. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. Just tired. Cassandra's downfall took longer, but it was just as complete. Week 6, I sent the complete file to her family in Boston. The recording, the bank statements, Margaret's lawsuit filing, everything. Her father called her once, told her the family trust $2 million she'd been set to inherit was being redirected to charity. She was no longer welcome at family events. Her name would be removed from the family foundation website. She was disowned. Week 7, she lost her HR job. The scandal had reached her employer, a quiet termination, a severance package with a non-disclosure agreement. Week 8, Margaret's wrongful death lawsuit was officially filed. Cassandra would spend the next year in depositions, answering questions about Richard under oath. Every lie documented, every manipulation exposed. Week 9, she moved out of her downtown apartment. Too expensive. She found a studio in a neighborhood far from Sky House, 400 square feet. No view. Week 10. Gerald saw her at King Soopers. She was working retail at the Target next door, wearing a red vest stocking shelves. He didn't approach her. Just watched for a moment, then left. When he told me, I expected to feel something. Vindication, maybe. Justice served. Instead, I just felt tired. "How's Nicholas handling it?" Gerald asked. "He doesn't want to know," I said. "He asked me to stop telling him about her. Said he needs to move forward, not keep looking back." Smart kid. Yeah, he is. Nicholas threw himself into therapy, into work, into rebuilding. By early June, 3 months after that Tuesday morning confrontation, we were finding our rhythm again. Sunday mornings, we'd drive out to Cherry Creek Reservoir, bring fishing rods and a cooler, sit on the shore and not talk much, just exist together. Father and son, the way it used to be before Cassandra. He started dating again in July, slowly, carefully, a woman named Sarah he'd met at a work conference. She was patient with him, understanding when he'd pull back, suddenly second-guessing everything. I told her, Nicholas said one Sunday while we were fishing. About Cassandra, about everything. I thought she'd run. She didn't. She said everyone has baggage. Mine just happens to be well documented and comes with a police-admissible recording. I laughed. It felt good. In my workshop, we started building a workbench together. Nicholas would come over after work some evenings. We'd sand wood, measure cuts, fit joints. The smell of sawdust, the sound of tools, the comfortable silence of two people who didn't need to fill every moment with words. 3 months after Cassandra left, I realized I hadn't checked her social media in weeks, hadn't asked Gerald if he'd seen her, hadn't thought about the recording sitting on my phone. She was becoming a memory. A bad one, but just a memory. One evening, Nicholas and I were in the workshop finishing the workbench. He ran his hand over the smooth surface, checking for rough spots. "Dad," he said. "Yeah. Thank you for not giving up on me, for fighting for me even when I didn't believe you." I looked at my son, 34 years old, stronger than he'd been 3 months ago, scarred but healing. "You're my son," I said simply. "That's what fathers do." He nodded, went back to sanding. The workshop was quiet except for the rasp of sandpaper on wood. Comfortable, peaceful. The comfortable silence had returned, and for the first time in months I felt like maybe finally it really was over. Summer came to Denver. June, July, August. The kind of Colorado summer where the air smells like pine and the mountains stand sharp against blue skies. Time doesn't heal all wounds, but it makes the scars easier to live with. In early June, Nicholas and I started renovating my workshop. It was his idea. "Let's rebuild it," he said one Sunday after fishing. "New workbenches, better lighting. Make it a space we both want to be in." I understood what he wasn't saying. We were rebuilding more than a workshop. We worked side by side most evenings, tearing out old shelving, sanding walls, painting, installing new electrical outlets. The kind of physical work that lets your mind wander while your hands stay busy. We talked about everything. Work, the Broncos, whether I should finally get rid of the Mustang I'd been restoring for 15 years. And sometimes we talked about Cassandra. "I keep thinking about the signs I missed," Nicholas said one evening, holding a paint roller. "How did I not see it?" "Because she was good at what she did. And because you loved her. Love makes us want to believe the best in people." He nodded, went back to painting. A week later, he was moving boxes in the back corner when he found something. Elizabeth's old toolbox. Pink handles her name written in permanent marker on the side. He held it for a long moment. "I remember this. Mom used to fix everything with these tools. She said a woman should know how to handle her own repairs." "She did," I said quietly. "She was good at fixing broken things." "Yeah." He set the toolbox on the new workbench carefully. "Can we keep this here where we can see it?" "I'd like that." By mid-July, Gerald started joining us. 3 men in a workshop arguing about the best way to install shelving, drinking beer, telling bad jokes. It felt good. Normal. The workshop was finished by late July. We stood in the doorway looking at what we'd built. New benches, organized tools, Elizabeth's pink toolbox in the center like a shrine. "It looks good," Nicholas said. "It does. Thanks for letting me help Dad." "Thanks for wanting to." One evening in July, Nicholas showed up at my door with a wrapped box. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a pocket watch, antique silver engraved. I recognized it immediately, Elizabeth's father's watch. I'd given it to Nicholas when he graduated college. "Nicholas, I can't. Turn it over." On the back below the original engraving was a new one, for second chances. "Love, Nicholas." My throat tightened. I pulled him into a hug. "Thank you," I managed. "You gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it. When I was planning to lock you away. When I believed her over you." His voice cracked. "You didn't give up on me." "You're my son. I'll never give up on you." We stood there in my doorway, father and son, holding each other like we hadn't since he was small. Late August, a letter arrived from San Diego, Margaret Sterling's return address. I read it alone in the kitchen, coffee growing cold beside me. "Dear Daniel, I don't have words for what you've given me. Evidence, hope, justice. The lawsuit is progressing well. My lawyer says Cassandra will likely settle rather than face a jury. We won't recover everything Richard lost, but that was never the point. Her life is destroyed. Her family has disowned her. She'll spend years in depositions answering for what she did. Civil justice isn't the same as criminal justice, but it's something. You saved your son. I couldn't save my brother. But knowing that Richard's story helped protect Nicholas, that means everything to me. Richard would have liked you. He would have respected what you did. If you ever make it to San Diego, please visit. I'd love to meet you and Nicholas in person, to thank you properly." With gratitude, Margaret, I sat there for a long time holding that letter. Then I cried. Just for a minute. Just enough to let it out. I called her that afternoon. "Margaret, it's Daniel. I got your letter." "Oh, Daniel." Her voice was warm. "Thank you for calling. Thank you. For fighting for Richard. For being willing to go through all this legal mess. It's not mess. It's closure. We talked for an hour. About Richard, about Nicholas, about how strange it was that tragedy could connect two strangers across 1,000 miles. "Your son is lucky to have you," she said before we hung up. "Richard was lucky to have you fighting for him. Maybe we're both just lucky we didn't give up." That evening, I asked Nicholas if he wanted to take a trip. San Diego. Next month, Margaret invited us. I think it'd be good to meet her, to see where Richard lived, to close that circle. Nicholas thought for a moment. "I'd love that, Dad." That night, I placed the pocket watch on my nightstand, right next to Elizabeth's photo, the one where she's smiling, standing in our backyard, the mountains behind her. Two symbols of love, two reminders of what matters. Elizabeth had taught me how to love someone completely, how to build a life with someone, how to be a father. And Nicholas had taught me something just as important, that love isn't perfect, that people make mistakes, that second chances matter. I looked at the watch, at the photo, at the life I'd fought so hard to protect. And for the first time since that Friday afternoon when I'd found the GPS tracker, I felt peace. Real peace. September 2024. 5 months after Cassandra walked out that door. I barely recognized my life anymore, in the best possible way. September 15th. Nicholas and I stood in the Denver County Courthouse waiting for the judge to sign the final divorce decree. 10 minutes. That's all it took to legally end a marriage that had nearly destroyed everything. Nicholas was quiet on the way out. Not sad, just processing. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah, I am." He looked at me. "It's really over now." It is. That afternoon, he showed up at my house with an envelope. "What's this? Open it." Inside was a check, $15,800, made out to me. "Well, Nicholas, it's what she took from our account. I saved it. Took me 5 months, but I saved it. And I want you to have it." "Son, you don't need to." "Yes, I do." His voice was firm. "She stole that money while planning to harm you, while planning to harm both of us. I need to make this right. Please, Dad, let me make this right." I looked at the check, at my son's determined face. "All right," I said quietly. "Thank you." He nodded, visibly relieved. That evening we were sitting in my living room, him on the couch, me in the armchair, when he mentioned it casually. "I went on a date last week." I looked up from my newspaper. "You did?" "Yeah, just coffee. Nothing serious." "Tell me about her." He smiled. A real smile. The kind I hadn't seen in months. "Her name is Sarah. She's a civil engineer. Works in a different department, so we don't see each other at the office much. We met at a work conference in July." He paused. "She's normal. Kind. She laughs at my terrible jokes. And when I told her about Cassandra, not everything, just that I'd been through a rough divorce, she didn't run. She just listened. Something warm settled in my chest. Hope. Cautious, but real. I'm glad, son. It's early. We're taking it slow. But Dad," he looked at me. "I think I might be okay. Eventually." "You will be. I know you will." That weekend, Gerald threw a barbecue. Nothing fancy, just neighbors, friends, good food. The kind of September afternoon where the air is starting to cool, but the sun is still warm. Nicholas came. So did Evelyn Patterson from down the street. So did the Rodriguezes from 2 houses over. People I'd known for years, but hadn't really talked to since the whole mess with Cassandra started. It felt good. Normal. Like coming back to a life I'd forgotten I had. Gerald's grandkids, 2 boys, 7 and 9, were running around the yard throwing a football. Nicholas joined them, showing them how to throw a spiral. I watched from the porch, beer in hand, and let myself imagine it. Someday, grandkids of my own. Nicholas teaching them to throw, to fish, to build things with their hands. Gerald sat down beside me. You're smiling. Am I? Yeah. It's a good look on you. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Heard Margaret's lawsuit settled, Gerald said. Partial judgment. Cassandra has to pay damages, not the full 400,000, but enough to hurt. Margaret said it wasn't about the money anyway. It was about making sure Cassandra couldn't just walk away clean. Good. Lancaster's license is permanently revoked. He lost his practice, his house. His ex-wife took him for everything in the divorce settlement. Also good. And Cassandra's still working retail, still isolated. Her family won't talk to her. She moved again last month, smaller place, cheaper rent. Gerald took a sip of his beer. You feel bad for her? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. I feel relieved, not happy. I'm not happy she's struggling. But I'm relieved that she didn't win, that she didn't get away with it. That's fair. Justice doesn't always look the way you think it will, but this... I gestured at the backyard, at Nicholas, laughing with those kids, at the neighbors, talking and eating. This feels like justice, getting our lives back, moving forward. You did good, Dan, Gerald said quietly. Really good. A lot of men would have just called the cops and let it play out. But you fought for your son. You protected him, even when he didn't believe you. I did what any father would do. No. You did what a good father would do. There's a difference. That night, after everyone left, Nicholas stayed to help me clean up. We washed dishes side by side, put away leftover food, wiped down tables. Simple, normal tasks. The kind we hadn't done together in 2 years. The kind Cassandra had slowly, deliberately cut out of our lives. When he was leaving, he paused at the door. Still on for Sunday next week, fishing. Of course, he smiled. Maybe I'll bring Sarah, if that's okay. I think she'd like to meet you. My throat tightened. I'd like that. Good. See you Sunday, Dad. See you Sunday, son. I watched him drive away, his taillights disappearing into the September night. 5 months ago, I'd been standing in a different apartment, watching my son confront the woman who'd tried to destroy us both. I'd wondered then if we'd ever get back to normal, if the damage could ever be undone. It couldn't be undone. Scars don't disappear, but they fade. And life grows around them. The following Sunday, Nicholas brought Sarah to meet me, and I understood why my son was smiling again. She arrived nervous, clutching a homemade apple pie like a shield. Mr. Williams, it's so nice to meet you. Nicholas has told me so much about you. Call me Daniel, and thank you, you didn't have to bring anything. I wanted to. She smiled, and it was genuine, no calculation behind it, just warmth. We sat down for lunch, nothing fancy, just sandwiches and chips, and I watched them together. Really watched. Sarah asked me questions about my work, about the house, about how long I'd lived in Denver. Simple questions, but they mattered. Cassandra had never asked about me. Not once in 2 years. Sarah laughed at something Nicholas said, her hand resting casually on his arm. Not possessive, not performative, just comfortable, real. So you're a civil engineer? I asked. Yep, bridges mostly. I work on the structural analysis team, making sure things don't collapse. She grinned. which is why I'm terrible at baking, too used to precise measurements. That pie might be a disaster. Nicholas laughed. It'll be perfect. The conversation flowed easily. Sarah talked about her family in Arizona, parents, 2 brothers, a niece she was crazy about. She talked about hiking, about a half marathon she was training for, about a book club she'd just joined. She had a life, a full, real life that existed outside of Nicholas. At one point, she noticed Elizabeth's photo on the mantel. "Is that your wife?" she asked gently. "Yes, Elizabeth. She passed away 6 years ago." Nicholas told me a little about her. He said she was wonderful. She was. What was she like? And I told her. About how Elizabeth could fix anything with duct tape and determination. About how she'd made me laugh even on the worst days. About how she'd taught Nicholas to be kind, to be strong, to be the man he'd become. Sarah listened. Really listened. Not just waiting for her turn to talk. Actually hearing me. After lunch, she stood to help clean up. Not because she was trying to impress me, just because it was the natural thing to do. When they were leaving, Nicholas hugged me at the door. "She likes you," he whispered. "I like her too, son. Very much." After they drove away, Gerald appeared on my porch. He'd probably been watching from his house, waiting. "That's a good woman," he said, settling into the chair next to mine. "She is. Nothing like the last one. Night and day." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the afternoon fade into evening. "You know what the difference is?" Gerald asked. "Tell me." "Sarah asked about you. She wanted to know about Elizabeth. She encouraged Nicholas to spend time with you. She suggested this lunch. Cassandra spent 2 years isolating him, cutting him off from you, from everyone." I nodded. I noticed. And the way she looks at him, it's not like she's studying him. Not like she's calculating. She just enjoys being with him. "Green flags," I said. "Exactly. All the red flags we missed with Cassandra, they're not there with Sarah. She's got her own job, her own friends, her own life. She's not trying to control him or change him or cut him off from the people who love him." "Real love doesn't isolate you," I said quietly. "It doesn't make you choose. Elizabeth teach you that?" "Yeah, she did." That evening I was alone in my workshop. Just me and the smell of sawdust and the quiet. I found myself talking to Elizabeth's photo, the one I kept on the workbench now next to her old toolbox. "He's going to be okay, Elizabeth," I said. "Both of us are." It was close, closer than I want to think about. But we made it through. I traced the edge of the photo frame. "I wish you could meet Sarah. You'd love her. She's genuine, kind. She makes him laugh, and she doesn't need to control him to love him." The workshop was quiet, just the sound of wind outside the distant hum of traffic. "Thank you," I whispered, "for teaching me what real love looks like, for showing me how to fight for our son. I couldn't have done this without everything you taught me." I set the photo back down next to the pocket watch Nicholas had given me. 2 symbols of love, 2 reminders of what mattered. October came. Nicholas and Sarah became regulars at Sunday dinner. Gerald always joined us. Sometimes we'd cook together, sometimes we'd order pizza. It didn't matter. What mattered was the laughter, the conversation, the easy comfort of people who genuinely cared about each other. My house, which had felt so empty after Elizabeth passed away, was full again. Not full of manipulation or lies or calculated charm. Full of life. Full of second chances. Full of real love. And for the first time in 6 years, sitting at that dinner table with my son and Sarah and Gerald, I felt something I hadn't felt since Elizabeth died. I felt home. The Sunday before Thanksgiving, November 24th, Nicholas and I went fishing one last time before winter really set in. We loaded the gear into my Silverado at dawn, the air cold enough to see our breath. The drive to Cherry Creek Reservoir was easy, comfortable. Nicholas talked about Sarah, about a project at work, about how he was thinking of getting a dog. Normal things. Good things. At the reservoir, we walked to our usual spot, a stretch of shore, with a good view of the Rocky Mountains, where the fish liked to gather near the fallen logs. We'd been coming here for 20 years, since Nicholas was 14. The routine was familiar. Setting up the rods, baiting the hooks, casting out. Sitting down on the cooler, coffee in hand, watching the lines. Comfortable silence. After about 20 minutes, Nicholas spoke. My therapist asked me something last week. Yeah. She asked if I'd forgiven myself yet. I looked at him. Have you? He stared at the water. I don't know. How do you forgive yourself for almost putting your own father in a nursing home, for tracking him like he was some kind of suspect? The same way I forgive myself for not seeing it sooner, for not protecting you from her. Dad, you have nothing to forgive yourself for. Neither do you. I set down my coffee. You were manipulated by a professional, Nicholas. Someone who'd done this before. Someone who knew exactly how to make you doubt yourself, doubt me, doubt reality. That's not your fault. But I should have known how she was good at what she did. She studied you. She learned what buttons to push. And she pushed them perfectly. I paused. The fact that you're sitting here now, that you believed me when it mattered most, that's what counts. He nodded slowly. Gerald told me something last week. He said Mom would be proud of us, of how we fought back, how we protected each other. My throat tightened. She would be. Your mother always said family protects family no matter what, no matter how hard it gets. I miss her. Me too, son. Every day. We sat in silence for a while, watching the water ripple in the wind. Thank you, Nicholas said quietly, for not giving up on me, even when I was planning to lock you away, even when I didn't believe you. You're my son. Giving up was never an option. I know, but still, thank you. His line suddenly went taut. Got one, he shouted, jumping up. I was beside him in a second, grabbing the net. We worked together, him reeling me ready with the net, just like we'd done 1,000 times before. The fish fought hard, but Nicholas was patient. Steady. When we finally brought it in, a rainbow trout, maybe 3 pounds, we both started laughing. Real, deep laughter that echoed across the water. Nice catch, I said. Thanks. He carefully removed the hook and held the fish for a moment, then lowered it back into the water. We watched it swim away, strong and free. This was worth it, I said. All of it. The pain, the betrayal, the fear. Because it brought us back here. To this. Nicholas looked at me. That's one hell of a silver lining, Dad. Yeah, it is. We fished for another hour, caught 2 more, threw them both back, talked about the future, about how Nicholas and Sarah were getting serious, about how he thought maybe eventually he'd be ready to propose. Not yet, he said quickly. But someday, when we're both ready. She's a good woman. She is. He smiled. You'd tell me if you had any doubts, right? In a heartbeat. But I don't. Not even a little. The sun started setting behind the Rocky Mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The same colors I'd seen that first night when I decided to fight back. when I decided to plant that GPS tracker on Cassandra's car. It felt like a lifetime ago. It felt like yesterday. We packed up the gear as the light faded, loaded everything back into the Silverado, drove home with the windows cracked, cold air rushing in the radio playing something old and familiar. "Next spring," Nicholas asked as I pulled into my driveway. "Same time. Wouldn't miss it." Me neither. That night, Gerald sent me a photo. He'd been at the reservoir too, keeping his distance, giving us space, but watching. Always watching out for us. The photo showed Nicholas and me holding that rainbow trout, both of us grinning like idiots. The Rocky Mountains rose behind us, sharp and beautiful against the sunset sky. I stared at that photo for a long time. Two men, father and son, scarred but whole, broken but healing. Behind us, the mountains, solid, unmovable, eternal. Ahead of us, the future uncertain but full of possibility. I saved the photo, set it as my phone background. And I thought about something Elizabeth used to say: real love bends. It stretches, it gets tested, but it never breaks. Not if it's real. She was right. We'd bent. We'd stretched. We'd been tested in ways I'd never imagined. But we hadn't broken. And we never would. March 2025. 1 year since I'd found that GPS tracker clamped under my Silverado. 1 year since my world had been turned upside down. I stood in my kitchen looking at the calendar on the wall. March 15th, the anniversary. 1 year ago, I'd been washing my truck on a Saturday morning, thinking about restoring that old Mustang. And then I'd found it, that small black device that changed everything. 1 year ago, I'd been terrified, betrayed, alone except for Gerald. Now my house was filled with Sunday dinners, with Nicholas and Sarah and Gerald and Evelyn Patterson from down the street, with laughter and conversation and the smell of pot roast cooking. Sarah stood beside me chopping vegetables. She'd started doing this, coming over early to help cook, not because she had to, because she wanted to. "You okay?" she asked, noticing me staring at the calendar. "Yeah, just thinking. What about how much can change in a year?" She smiled, squeezed my arm, went back to chopping. In the living room, Nicholas and Gerald were watching a Broncos game, arguing good-naturedly about some play call. The easy friendship they'd developed, the way Gerald had stepped in as a mentor, made something warm settle in my chest. After dinner, Nicholas pulled me aside. "Ed, can we talk privately?" Of course. We stepped out onto the back porch. The March air was cold, but not bitter. Spring was coming. "I want to propose to Sarah," Nicholas said. My throat tightened. "Son, I know it's only been a year since the divorce. I know some people will say it's too fast. But Dad..." He looked at me. "Well, after everything with Cassandra, I was scared I'd never trust anyone again. That I'd spend the rest of my life second-guessing every woman I met. But you don't feel that way with Sarah." "No, she's real, genuine. She makes me want to be better, not because she's manipulating me, but because she believes I already am." He paused. "You taught me that. You showed me the difference between manipulation and real love. Your mother taught me first. Then you both taught me. And it's a gift, painful as hell to learn, but real." His voice dropped. "Sarah encourages me to spend time with you. She asks about Mom. She wants to learn your pot roast recipe. She has her own friends, her own life. She doesn't need me to complete her. She chooses me every day." I pulled him into a hug. "She's a wonderful woman, Nicholas. I'm so happy for you. Will you help me pick the ring?" "I'd be honored." The following week, we flew to San Diego. Margaret Sterling had been asking us to visit for months. "Come see where Richard lived," she'd said. "Come meet me in person. Let me thank you properly." Her house was small, neat painted yellow with white trim. But what struck me immediately was the photos. Richard everywhere young. Richard with a baseball glove, teenage Richard at prom, middle-aged Richard hiking in Yosemite. Richard at charity events, smiling that same easy smile in every picture. He was so full of life, Margaret said, showing us around. Before her. Before Cassandra. He loved adventure, loved people. She took that from him. Until he was just a shell. Nicholas stood in front of a photo of Richard at the summit of half-dome arms, spread wide, grinning at the camera. "He looks happy," Nicholas said quietly. He was. That was 2 years before he met her. Margaret's voice caught. "I want you to remember him like this. Not as Cassandra's victim. As the man he really was. As my brother, funny, generous, full of dreams." We sat in her living room for hours, drinking coffee that grew cold as we talked. She told us about Richard's childhood, about how he'd built his real estate business from nothing, about how lonely he'd been after his divorce. "The lawsuit finalized last month," Margaret said. "Cassandra has to pay damages. Not much, she doesn't have much left. But it's on record now. What she did. Who she is. If she ever tries this again with someone else, there's a paper trail." "What about criminal charges?" Nicholas asked. "Unlikely. The evidence is circumstantial. No autopsy. No direct proof. But the civil judgment stands, and her name is permanently attached to wrongful death." Margaret looked at me. "You gave me something I thought I'd never have, Daniel. Peace. Closure. The knowledge that someone believes me, that someone fought back. That's worth more than any amount of money." "Richard deserved better," I said. "He did. But because of you, Nicholas won't be another statistic. Another tragic accident that nobody questions." She reached across and took Nicholas's hand. "You saved your son. I couldn't save my brother. But knowing that Richard's story helped protect you, that gives his life meaning beyond what she took." We spent the afternoon looking through photo albums. Richard as a child playing Little League. Richard graduating from USC. Richard starting his business. Margaret narrated each photo with love and grief, bringing her brother back to life through memory. "He would have liked you both," she said softly. "Richard believed in family. In protecting the people you love. He would have been proud that his story saved someone else." Before we left San Diego, Margaret took us to Richard's grave. It was in a quiet cemetery overlooking the ocean on a hillside covered in eucalyptus trees. Simple headstone. Richard Allen Sterling. 1970 to 2021. Beloved brother. Nicholas placed flowers at the base, white roses. "I'm sorry we couldn't stop her sooner. I'm sorry about what she did to you." Margaret's voice was gentle. "You stopped her from doing it again. That's what matters. Richard would thank you for that." We stood there for a long moment, 3 people connected by tragedy, bound by survival. The ocean wind carried the scent of salt and eucalyptus. Seagulls called overhead. "He loved this view," Margaret said. "Used to come here all the time to think. Now he gets to stay here, looking out at the ocean he loved." I put my hand on Nicholas's shoulder. We'd driven 3 hours through Los Angeles traffic to get here, but standing at Richard Sterling's grave felt necessary, essential, like paying a debt we could never fully repay. "Thank you," I said to Richard's headstone. "To the man I'd never met, but whose story had saved my son's life. And I thank you for giving Margaret the courage to warn us. Thank you for not being forgotten." The wind picked up, rustling the eucalyptus leaves above us. For a moment, it felt like Richard was there with us. like he understood, like he was at peace knowing his story had meaning. Margaret placed her hand on the headstone, her fingers tracing his name. I miss you every day, Richard. But knowing Nicholas is safe because of you, knowing you saved someone that helps. It really does. We stayed another few minutes in silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. Then Margaret nodded, and we walked slowly back to the car. On the flight home, somewhere over Arizona, Nicholas fell asleep with his head on my shoulder. Like he used to when he was a kid, when we'd fly to visit Elizabeth's family, and he'd conk out before we even took off. I looked down at him, 35 years old now, about to propose to a woman he loved, building a life I'd nearly lost him to. We'd come so close, so impossibly close to losing everything that mattered. But we'd made it. Stronger, scarred, but whole. And that was worth everything. People keep asking me what I learned, how we survived it. The answer isn't simple. The morning after we flew back from San Diego, I found myself alone in the workshop. The same space where I'd hidden from the truth, where I'd planned the surveillance, where Nicholas and I had rebuilt more than furniture over the summer. This time I wasn't hiding. I was thinking about what I'd missed, the red flags I missed with Cassandra. She isolated Nicholas from us immediately. Within weeks of their relationship, Sunday dinners stopped. Phone calls became shorter. She always had a reason. Nicholas was tired. They had plans. He was stressed. Every excuse sounded reasonable. That was the brilliance. No single incident seemed alarming, but together they formed a pattern of systematic separation. She had an explanation for everything. Perfect answers that shut down questions before they formed. When I wondered why Nicholas seemed distant, she'd cite specific work deadlines. When money went missing, she'd show me a receipt proving he'd withdrawn it. The explanations were so smooth, so detailed, that doubting them felt like paranoia. When cornered, she played the victim. If I questioned her motives suddenly, I was attacking a young woman trying to help her struggling husband. If Nicholas hesitated, she'd cry about not being trusted. The guilt was immediate and effective. She transformed every confrontation into an indictment of the questioner. She made Nicholas doubt his own memory. It started small. You promised we'd have dinner Friday, remember? When he hadn't. Then bigger, your father said he didn't want to see us, when I'd said no such thing. Over time, Nicholas stopped trusting his own recollection. He'd call to verify things I'd supposedly said. She'd broken his confidence in his own mind. Her criticism was surgical, never direct, always wrapped in concern. I'm worried about your father. He seems confused lately. Nicholas has been so forgetful. Maybe we should talk to someone. She planted seeds of doubt disguised as care, because the criticism came as worry. Rejecting it felt cruel. She controlled information between us. What I knew about Nicholas came filtered through her. What he knew about me came filtered through her. If I called his work phone, she'd answer, "He's in a meeting, I'll have him call back." He never did. We were speaking through an intermediary who was lying to both of us. And slowly, she created dependence. Nicholas needed her to interpret his world, to tell him what was real, to manage his confusion, to make decisions when he felt uncertain. By the time I found that GPS tracker, my son couldn't trust his own judgment anymore. What I see with Sarah now. The contrast teaches me what healthy love actually looks like. Sarah encourages Nicholas to spend time with me. When he mentions he hasn't seen me in a while, she suggests, "Why don't you call your dad? Maybe go fishing this weekend." She doesn't see our relationship as competition. She sees it as something that enriches Nicholas's life. She asks genuine questions and listens to the answers. Real listening, where you can tell someone is processing what you're saying. Last week, she asked about Elizabeth's garden. 2 weeks later, she showed up with a gardening book about heritage roses. She'd remembered. That's genuine connection. She has her own life, friends from college, a book club, a weekly run with coworkers. She doesn't need Nicholas to complete her. She wants him in her life, which is entirely different. She never makes him feel guilty for having separate interests. When she makes a mistake, she admits it. Last month, she forgot plans with Nicholas. She called immediately, apologized, sincerely took responsibility, and rescheduled. No excuses, no blaming traffic or stress, just accountability. I messed up, I'm sorry, how can I make it right? She respects boundaries. If Nicholas needs space, she gives it without guilt. If I'm tired and want to end a conversation, she doesn't push. She understands that healthy relationships need room to breathe. She's transparent about emotions. If she's upset, she says so. If she's happy, it shows. There's no hidden agenda, no manipulation disguised as concern, no games where Nicholas has to guess what she's feeling. And she supports his independence. She wants Nicholas to make his own decisions, maintain his own friendships, have his own life. She doesn't need to control him to love him. She loves him more for his autonomy. Manipulation is invisible until you learn what to look for. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. That's Nicholas's protection now. He knows the patterns. He recognizes the red flags, and that knowledge might save someone else's life someday. I think about how many people are trapped right now, confused and isolated, certain they're losing their minds when they're being systematically destroyed. How many are being cut off from families by someone who claims to love them? If sharing this story helps even one person recognize what's happening, then maybe all of this was worth something beyond our survival. That evening, Nicholas invited everyone to dinner. He'd insisted on cooking, said he had something to announce. Sarah arrived early to help. Gerald and Evelyn showed up with wine. The house felt full in a way it hadn't since Elizabeth died. We were finishing dessert when Nicholas stood up. His hand shook slightly as he reached into his pocket. The room went quiet. "Sarah," he said, voice cracking. He cleared his throat. "I've learned a lot about love this year. About what it should be and what it shouldn't be. About the difference between control and care. You've shown me what real partnership looks like, patient and honest and kind. You've never asked me to choose between you and my family. You've never made me doubt myself. You've never needed to control me to care about me." He dropped to one knee. "Will you marry me?" Sarah's hands covered her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, of course, yes." The room erupted. Gerald was clapping and wiping his eyes. Evelyn was crying. I sat very still, watching my son slip a ring onto Sarah's finger. And suddenly, I was 25 again, kneeling in Elizabeth's parents' living room, terrified she'd say no. Gerald leaned close. And this time he chose the right person. "He had to learn the hard way," I said. "But he learned." I stood raising my glass. My hand was steadier than Nicholas's had been. "To Nicholas," I said, "who had the courage to face the truth when it would have been easier to look away, who rebuilt himself from the ground up, who refused to let betrayal make him bitter." I looked at Sarah. "Welcome to our family, Sarah. We're lucky to have you. You're getting a good man, one who knows the value of honesty because he's lived without it." I raised my glass higher. "To new beginnings, to love that heals instead of harms, to trust that's earned, not demanded, and to family, the ones we're born into and the ones we choose." Nicholas crossed the room and hugged me. "None of this would have been possible without you, Dad." "You saved yourself, son," I said. "I just showed you the door. You had the courage to walk through it." Later that night, I found Nicholas on the back porch, staring at the stars. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he smiled. "Better than okay. Then quieter, "When I have kids someday, will you tell them this story? Even the painful parts. Especially the painful parts," he said. "So they know that evil exists, that manipulation is real, that not everyone who says they love you does." He paused. "But also so they know that real love is stronger, that family is worth fighting for. That truth is better than a comfortable lie." I looked at the ring on his finger catching starlight. "I'll tell them," I said. "Every word, every lesson. Because some stories need to be told, not despite the pain, but because of it. That's how we protect the people we love. They say every ending is a new beginning. I never understood that until now." June 2025. The morning of Nicholas's wedding dawned clear and bright. I stood at my bedroom window, watching the sunrise paint the Rocky Mountains gold, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt peace. Nicholas was in his old bedroom down the hall, struggling with his tie. His hands were shaking badly. "Here," I said, stepping forward. "Let me." I'd done this before his high school prom, his college graduation, the day he married Cassandra, when I should have seen the warning signs. This time felt different. "I never thought I'd get married again," Nicholas said quietly. "After everything with Cassandra, I thought I was done." I finished the knot and adjusted it. "Sarah's not Cassandra. They don't share a single quality." "I know." He met my eyes. "That's exactly why I can do this. I know the difference now. I'll never confuse them again." I gripped his shoulder. "Xian, that's the gift, son. You learned." The wedding was beautiful in its simplicity. No elaborate decorations, no performances, just honest vows between two people who'd learned that love requires courage. Because Nicholas's mother wasn't here to walk him down the aisle, I did. When the music started, my throat tightened. Nicholas offered me his arm, and together we walked between rows of friends and family who'd stood by us through everything. Every step was his choice to trust again, to love again, to believe that not everyone would hurt him. I could feel his arm trembling against mine. Sarah stood at the altar in a simple white dress with wildflowers in her hair. Tears streamed down her face, and she wasn't trying to hide them. No performance, just genuine emotion. When we reached the front, I placed Nicholas's hand in Sarah's. Before I sat down, Sarah squeezed my hand. "Thank you," she mouthed. The vows were honest and raw. Nicholas promised to listen, to communicate openly, to never make Sarah doubt her own memories. He promised to value her independence, to support her friendships, to never isolate her. Sarah promised the same, to encourage his relationship with me, to be transparent, to build trust, rather than control. I sat next to Gerald and thought about Elizabeth, how she would have cried through this entire ceremony, how she would have loved Sarah's warmth, how proud she would have been of Nicholas. She would have loved this, I whispered to Gerald. He nodded, knowing I meant Elizabeth. At the reception, there was dancing and laughter and real joy, not the performative kind from Cassandra's wedding, but genuine happiness from people who'd watched Nicholas survive and come out stronger. When it was time for the father of the groom's speech, I stood with my glass raised. The room quieted. 2 years ago, I began my voice steady. I almost lost my son. Not to death, though I feared that might come. I almost lost him to lies, to manipulation so subtle and complete that he couldn't see it, and I almost couldn't reach him in time. I saw Nicholas's jaw tighten. Sarah reached for his hand. I watched someone systematically isolate him from his family. I watched her make him doubt his own mind, his own memories, his own judgment. I watched her convince him that his confusion was his fault, that his concern was paranoia, that loving his family was betraying her. The room was silent. But love brought him back. Real love. The kind that doesn't isolate, doesn't control, doesn't make you doubt yourself. The kind that encourages family relationships. The kind that's transparent about emotions, admits mistakes, respects boundaries. I looked at Sarah. Sarah, thank you for showing my son what that looks like. For being patient while he learned to trust again. For understanding his caution wasn't about you, it was about protecting himself. For loving him without needing to own him, without needing to control him, without making him smaller so you could feel bigger. Sarah was crying openly. I turned to Nicholas. And son, thank you for having the courage to try again. For not letting betrayal make you bitter or closed off. For recognizing that one person's cruelty doesn't define what love is. For doing the hard work of healing. For trusting me when I showed you the truth, even though it hurt. My voice cracked. Your mother would be so proud of the man you've become. I know I am. I raised my glass higher. To second chances. To new beginnings. To love that heals instead of harms. And to family, the ones we're born into and the ones we choose. The room erupted in applause and tears. Margaret Sterling approached me during dinner, her eyes red. Richard would have loved to see this, she said softly. To know that something good came from all that pain. That his story helped save Nicholas. He's part of why we're here, I said. Your willingness to share what happened made all the difference. She squeezed my hand. Then maybe it wasn't all for nothing. Gerald served as best man, delivering a toast about 35 years of friendship, about watching Nicholas grow from a boy into a man who'd survived something most people couldn't imagine. His voice cracked twice, talking about loyalty and resilience, and the difference between surviving and thriving. As the evening wound down, Nicholas and Sarah prepared to leave for their honeymoon. Nicholas found me by the dance floor. He hugged me tightly. I love you, Dad. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't see. Thank you for saving my life. I love you too, son. My voice was thick. But you saved yourself. I just showed you the door. You had the courage to walk through it. He pulled back, smiling. We're already planning Sunday dinners when we get home. Sarah wants to learn your pot roast. I'll be here, I said. Every Sunday. That night, long after everyone had left, I found myself in the workshop. It had become my refuge, the place I went to think, to process, to talk to Elizabeth. The GPS tracker still sat on the shelf. Such a small device that had almost destroyed us. Next to it, Elizabeth's photo in the frame Nicholas had made in high school. And now, a new addition. Nicholas and Sarah's engagement photo from December, both laughing in the snow. I picked up Elizabeth's photo and spoke softly. He got married today, Elizabeth. Wore your father's cufflinks, the ones you gave him at graduation. He looked so much like you at that altar. Same eyes, same smile when he's truly happy. I traced her face. She's wonderful, love, Sarah. You would adore her. She encourages him to see me, to go fishing, to maintain his friendships. She asks about you constantly. She wants to plant roses in your garden next spring, heritage roses like the ones you loved. I set the photo down gently. I kept my promise, protected our boy the way you asked me to that last night in the hospital. He's going to be okay. Better than okay. He's going to be happy. I looked at the GPS tracker. Oh, this almost destroyed us, I said aloud. But it also saved us, forced us to confront the truth before it was too late. Cassandra had wanted to take everything money, freedom lives. Instead, she taught us what really mattered. Trust, truth, family. I thought about where everyone was now. Cassandra still in Denver working retail at Target, isolated with a ruined reputation. Dr. Lancaster stripped of his medical license, divorced, living in a studio doing online consulting. Margaret Sterling finally at peace, knowing Richard's memory was honored. Gerald still next door, with Evelyn still showing up with coffee and friendship. And Nicholas and Sarah probably landing in San Diego, now planning their future, talking about babies and Sunday dinners. I ran my fingers over the GPS tracker one more time. I lost 2 years with my son, I said to the empty workshop to Elizabeth's photo. 2 years of Sunday dinners and fishing trips and late-night conversations. But I have the rest of my life to make new memories. We both do. Second chances. That's what life offers if you're brave enough to take them. If you're reading this, if you recognize yourself in this story, trust your instincts. Document everything. Don't give up on the people you love. Real love doesn't isolate. Real love doesn't make you doubt yourself. Real love doesn't need to control you. That GPS tracker sits on my shelf now, not as a reminder of betrayal, but of resilience, of survival, of a father and son who refused to let evil win. Because in the end, love won, and it always will. Looking back at my story, I realize how close I came to losing everything. Family betrayal cuts deeper than any stranger's cruelty because it wears the mask of love. If you recognize these patterns in your own life, isolation, constant explanations, doubt in your own mind, don't wait like I did. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Reach out to people who truly love you. The lessons I learned are painful but clear. Real love liberates. Manipulation imprisons. Real love encourages family connections. Control destroys them. These grandpa stories aren't just about survival, they're warnings. Family betrayal happens when we ignore red flags because we want to believe in someone. Grandpa stories like mine exist to remind younger generations. Vigilance isn't paranoia when someone's already proven they'll harm you. My personal belief: God puts people in our path for a reason. Gerald wasn't just a neighbor, he was divine intervention when I needed it most. Margaret Sterling's courage to share her brother's story saved Nicholas's life. Even the pain of family betrayal served a purpose, teaching us to recognize real love from counterfeit affection. If you're living through something similar, don't give up. The truth is worth the pain of discovering it. Your grandpa stories don't have to end in tragedy, they can end in triumph like mine did. Thank you for walking this journey with me to the end. I'd love to hear your perspective. What would you do if you found yourself in Daniel's position? Drop a comment sharing your thoughts. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing so you won't miss future videos. A gentle reminder: while inspired by real-world patterns of manipulation and elder abuse, certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this content isn't your preference, feel free to explore other videos that might suit you better.